All right, so this is the introduction to quadratic equations. In Unit 2, we talked about linear functions. Those were the straight lines, and their equation was y equals mx plus b. Notice how there's no exponent anywhere in that equation. For quadratics, we're going to talk about different kinds of functions, different from linear. Okay, so a quadratic equation is an equation where the highest exponent of your variable is a square, which means it has a 2 as an exponent. The name quadratic comes from quad, meaning square, because the variable gets squared. Like if you had x squared. A quadratic function is usually written as ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, which is in standard form. Now you might also see it written as y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, or even f of x equals, instead of having that equals 0 at the end. All of those are standard form. A, b, and c are going to be known values, meaning those are going to be numbers. A cannot be 0. And think about that for a minute. Why would A out here in the front not be 0? Well, if A was 0 and you multiplied 0 by this x squared, that would make this whole term 0. And then we would get rid of our squared term, which would then just leave us with bx plus c, which actually is linear. So if A is 0, it's no longer a quadratic. X is then the variable, or the unknown value. So when you solve, you're trying to figure out what does x equal. All right, so we have two examples here identifying A, B, and C. In this first example, A would equal 2, B would equal 5, and C would equal -3. Make sure you take that negative with it. See if you can do this second example on your own. For this one, you should have got A equals 1, B equals -3, and C equals 4. It's important to note that these two equations are written in standard form. Now, let's say this second example was written this way. It's no longer in standard form because the first two terms have been switched around. However, when you list your A, your B, and your C, they stay the same. Whatever number's with the x squared, that's your A. Whatever's with the x term, that's B. And whatever's your constant at the end, that's C. So your A would still be 1, your B would still be -3, and your C would be 4. Here's an example of what a quadratic looks like when it's graphed. This equation, or parent function, meaning the most basic quadratic, is y equals x squared. And the shape, this U shape, is called a parabola. It's not a parabola, it's a parabola. That's how you say it.